Hey folks, Todd here. Today we're going to install the Truxedo Pro X15 on this 2024 Jeep Gladiator. Now, depending on the configuration of your Gladiator, you may require a couple of different tools than what I'm using, but these are the tools that you'll see me use in this installation video. We've got a couple of ratchets, one with a 3/8 driver and one with a 1/4 inch driver. We got a 7/16 and 9/16 sockets. We've also got an 1/8 inch, 4mm, and 5mm Allen wrench sockets, a T27 Torx bit socket, a 1/2 inch wrench, and a pair of scissors. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're gonna start off by installing our bulkhead seal up here on the bulkhead. Now, I've already wiped down this surface with some isopropyl rubbing alcohol. That's very important to get any kind of residues off of the surface, make sure it's thoroughly clean. Next, we're gonna go ahead and take our bulkhead seal. Now, it's kind of an L shape, and it's important the way we install this. So the vertical portion of the L needs to face towards the inside of the bed of the truck, and the flat portion faces towards the cab. Also, we want to make sure that it kind of rides along this edge right here. So as it goes, this is where it's going to be installed. We want to make sure it's all the way up against the bed cap. I'm going to go ahead and peel off some of the tape protectant and go ahead and set that in place. All right, now we're going to go ahead and work this all the way over to the other side and cut it in place. Okay, next we're going to install our block seals. Now that's going to go right up here. Basically, it's going to ride right up the front of our bulkhead seal and rest on this angled portion on the bulkhead right here, and then kind of hang off. So best way to peel that off is to peel back here to start it, and then you can peel it right off. And I'm just going to roll it up here. And repeat the same for the opposite side. Now, depending on your configuration, you want to follow the instructions in your install sheet for your particular configuration. Ours is actually slightly modified. So this normally would be a hexagon-shaped hole up here. This actually has a nutsert inside of it, so I actually have threads behind there already. We would be using the jack nut up top, and then the urethane well nut on the bottom. We're still going to be using the urethane well nut on the bottom, so I'm just going to go ahead and slip that in. If you've got spray and bed liner, that just slides in and is nice and tight. If you do not have a spray and bed liner, it's not quite as tight and it might fall out. So next what we're going to do, since I've got that well nut in place, I'm going to take a flat washer, put it on the back side of the bracket, and then take our hardware for that well nut, which is a large, long skinny bolt with a flat washer, run that through, and I'm going to go ahead and start threading that into the well nut. Now, we are not tightening down the hardware at this time. We're just going to leave it hand tight. We'll come back and tighten it later. And then because I have threads up top, I'm just going to use a bolt that fits those threads. This is actually the same bolt that you would be using if you had a threaded hole down here. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this hand tight for right now. The key is I want to be able to adjust this up and down so I can set the rail properly when it comes to that point. Now again, I'm going to be using different hardware than you're probably using. But the tools I'm using here on the well nut hardware is an 1/8 inch Allen wrench, and up here on this bolt we're using a 5mm Allen wrench. All right, let's go ahead and move to our rear bracket. Okay, when we come back to the rear of the bed next to the tailgate pillar, we're going to have a threaded hole here and an oval hole right here. Now, this is because we do not have the trail rail system. If you have the trail rail system where you've got the aluminum channel that runs through here, you're going to use different hardware and it's a different process. Just follow your install sheet for that. I'm going to go ahead and show you the without trail rail scenario. So this threaded hole right here, I want to point out also, this one has a spray and bed liner, and so that was kind of covered up with some spray and bed liner material. So I had to clear that out. If you need to clear that, the best way to do it is with a tap and die set. Get an M6 tap, and you can run the tap through and make sure you clear everything out of those threads, because we're going to be using an M6 bolt that goes in there. Now, I've got the bracket. This is called the driver's side bracket. So if you look on here, it's got a D cut into it for driver's side. Back here, there's a piece that's kind of bent in. It's a little tab. That tab is going to rest right inside the oval hole and allow us to put this hole over top of the round hole, or the threaded hole. So we're going to go ahead and set that up in place and get that started. All right, now we're going to go ahead and run that down with a 4mm Allen wrench. We can go ahead and snug that one down. Next, what we're going to do is find our L-shaped bracket. The bottom side of it is going to have a little bit of a cutout above its oval hole. It's going to go on in this orientation. Now, the way that's going to fasten is in your kit, you're going to have an aluminum block that's got threads in it. That's going to go right behind here. And then this is going to line up in front of that hole. Next, what we're going to do is in our kit, take our hex bolt and flat washer. We're going to run that through there. And we're just going to get this hand tight because, again, we're going to need to be able to adjust this once we get our rail in place. All right. And that cutout is there in case you need to adjust it down. It allows you to go over top of that washer and allow the washer to rest inside the cutout. All right, go ahead and repeat that on the opposite side. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take the rail, line up to the holes, to the slotted holes in the brackets down below. Now those brackets are still not tightened up. What we need to do first is line up everything on top before we can tighten things down below. In our kit, we're going to have a Torx bolt that's going to go down through the top. And then we've got a flat washer below along with a nylock nut. Get that connected. Once that's connected, we're going to do the same thing at the back with the same hardware. Torx bolt. All right, next what we want to do is we want to make sure this is properly aligned. So we want to make sure that it's pushed all the way up against the bed cap and then drawn down. So right now, this is properly aligned where it's up against the bed cap to create a seal. So with it right here, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down this hardware, then hold this against the seal, tighten down this hardware, then we can adjust the brackets down. All right, now the tools that we're going to be using to tighten down this hardware, we're going to be using a T27 Torx bit up at the top, and on the bottom, a 7/16 wrench or ratchet. Let me go ahead and tighten it down. Repeat that at the back. Again, make sure it's lined up and bearing down against the bed cap. And once you bear down on that bolt, sometimes you may or may not be able to tighten this bolt with a socket. We're going to use an open-end wrench. There might not be enough room to get a socket on it, so. All right, now we're going to go ahead and lock down the bracket up front. The bolt up top is the 5mm Allen wrench. Again, you might have a different bolt up top. And then for the well nut, now if you're using the well nut down below, whenever you tighten that up, you don't want to over tighten it, just get it a little bit snug. Once you start feeling the resistance on it, what's happening is you're crushing that well nut and it holds it in place. You don't have to over tighten it at that point. now I'm starting to feel the resistance on there, so it's all done. Okay, now here is our cover as it comes out of the box. What I like to do is set it on top of the rails to where the Velcro is just right over top of the receiving part of the Velcro on the rails. Now this portion right here, what you're gonna see is we got a rubber flap. That rubber flap is going to rotate over and lay over top of our bulkhead and provide additional seal. We've also got a couple of straps. Make sure the straps are going down into the bed of the truck. That way they're not going over top of the bulkhead. That won't work for you. Okay, now this is going to be rotating forward. So the back side of this, when it rotates over, will be in front of this plunger. This slot is going to line up to this oval hole. But before we can rotate it over, we first need to pull off our end cap and insert a bolt. So let's go ahead and push that out real quick. The square-headed bolt is just going to rock right in place. And push the end cap back on. We're going to repeat that on the opposite side as well. All right, next we're going to go ahead and set it in place. Make sure the end caps are pushed all the way in because it's going to be a nice tight fit. Get them between the rails and rotate it down to where the bolts go down through those oval holes. Okay, so here's where the bolt's coming down through the rail. Now I want to draw your attention, we've got that foam block that's back here. We've got an oversized washer, it's a plastic washer. It's going to fit over top of that bolt and slide up. Make sure it slides up clear of that foam block, and that just compresses out of the way, so you just push it. Once that's in place, we've got a nylock nut that's going to go onto that bolt. And we're going to snug that down, but don't over tighten it. Basically what we want to do is we want to get this drawn down so that holds in place, but can still move back and forth. What that's going to allow us to do is whenever this gets drawn back, it can compress the plunger up top. So we want it snug to where it holds it all together, but not over tight to where it cannot move backwards. We're going to use a 9/16 socket to tighten that down. All right, now I've got some resistance there. I went a little bit too tight, so I'm going to go ahead and back it off. All right, there we go. Now it can move. Repeat the same process on the opposite side. All right, now we're going to go ahead and roll the cover back towards the tailgate. Now, when you initially roll this back, one thing that I like to do is kind of pull up on the cover a little bit. Get it off the Velcro and pull straight back. That keeps anything that's starting to bunch up at the front, keeps it from getting bunched up. Also, when you do this on these covers, I like to pull it off the Velcro and make sure that the Velcro in the track is pushed all the way towards the front. Do that on both sides as well. And then as we roll it back to the tailgate, when we get back to the very end, make sure that our tail rail is between our two rails. Rotate into these slots right here and just kind of rotate that cam down. And let latch in place. Now we can go ahead and fix our Velcro on the sides. Well, that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online.